Hello, welcome to the Sideboard here at the StarCityGames.com Modern Open in Charlotte, part of the SCG Tour, brought to you by Ultimate Guard. I'm Nick Miller alongside Lucas Michaels, and you are playing the Bant, well, 4-color human company deck.
I call it 5-color humans. I got the red in the board there.
Sure. So we have all of the colors of the rainbow represented here, and we're playing all of the humans that you can possibly fit into a modern deck.
Every human I could find, or the internet could find for me. Yep.
And we've kind of seen iterations of this, you know, when Thalia's Lieutenant came out in Modern, people kind of jumped on the mono white build and then kind of started working Collected Company into it. Now we're here.
Yep. I actually played Bant humans at the Pro Tour, so a lot of the same stuff going on with Reflector Mage and Collected Company.
Now, this list has kind of been popping up online as of late, doing really well in the leagues. Where did you see the deck? Because I know you played Affinity a lot in Modern. You've now jumped onto this deck. Yep,
so I saw it 5-0 Modern League maybe 10 days ago, and then it basically 5-0'd every day during the week, which is kind of hard to do, especially for a deck that no one's playing. They didn't even have a label on the site. It was just called 5-color. They're all pretty famous people. I think it was Hall of Famer Ole Rade, Magic Online champion Magnus Lanto, and Magic Online champion Budakov. I don't know what his real name is.
Right.
So all these like good players are like look like they're actually playing this deck and doing well with it. So I work during the week, so I don't play test all that much during the week. So I was like, looks good. Sick of losing on day 2 with Affinity, which often happens after I crush day 1. Yeah,
I talked to your friend Hunter Nance, and he said he always does well on round or day 1, and then has trouble day 2. And Affinity is a deck that can definitely suffer that. Once you reach day 2, people know what's going on, have the hate cards. Yeah,
at the team open, I 8-0'd with Affinity and then lost my first 4 on day 2 where Hunter had to kind of bail me into top 8.
All right, so we're playing this deck. We're going to go over all the cards. We've got the 1-drops, Noble Hierarch, Avacyn's Pilbara, humans, but also tap for mana, and then later on can attack for good amounts of damage or kind of supplement the attacks in Noble Hierarch's case. And then Champion of the Parish, kind of the real heavy hitter on 1.
Yep. Key to the deck, always lead on Noble, or nearly almost always lead on Noble. Getting that mana ramp is so good. If you draw Thalia and can turn 2 Thalia, it's great. But all the 1-drops are good. When you don't have a mana guide, Champion can beat really hard, really fast.
So we always want mana on turn 1 because there's so many things this deck can do on 2, whether it's a 2-drop and a 1-drop or one of your powerful 3-drops.
Yeah.
So 2-drops, we have Thalia, Guardian of Thraben, have to mention which one because we're running both copies, and then Thalia's Lieutenant along with the Mayor of Averbrook here, really pumping the whole team.
Yeah, 2 different pump effects, and then we're also kind of running a Thalia theme deck with 2 Thalias and the Lieutenant.
Which one's more important in the format?
Big Thalia has been really impressive to me. I saw some lists want to go up to, I'm running 3 and 3. Some lists want to go 4 of the 2-drop, but I'm on 3 and 3, and I really like 3 of the Big Thalia. She is incredible against fetch lands, incredible against Death Shadow, where they're trying, a big part of their strategy is to land a huge blocker, and they're never a blocker when they always come into play tapped. So yeah, Big Thalia's been my favorite one.
A lot of people have been asking, how do you attack the Death Shadow deck, in particular Grixis, and some people are saying maybe you just get under them. Is this deck capable of doing that?
Yeah, I actually dodged Grixis Shadow for my first 10 rounds, but I just played it back-to-back rounds, and I'm doing a lot of things that are pretty good against them. Like on the play, both Thalias are very sort of oppressive to what they're doing. Reflector Mage is super good against all the Delve creatures, just good in general when they're playing. It's a sort of sick 1 giant threat, like stalling it when they don't have that many in terms of like quantity of them in their deck, putting it back. Sin Collector gets value against them. Just sort of every spot on the chain does what you want to do. All my removal deals with all of their creatures, which is not always the case if you're playing a deck with like bolts.
Yep, having Path to Exile and Reflector Mage, you're always going to be hitting the cards that you care about.
Yeah.
And one thing, these Grixis Shadow decks have enough removal to kind of deal with these mid-range decks, but you are just a deck of nothing but threats, basically. So you're going to run them out of removal.
Yeah, I think it's 31 humans in the deck. So post-board they get stuff like Anger the Gods, or some of them have some copies of that. But other than that, I just have so much threat density, so many humans. Especially Coco.
Do you have to kind of play a balance game, sort of like Burn, or can you just hit them early and then build up a board presence and then just get them that way?
I generally have a pretty good awareness of what decks are playing sweepers in their main deck, which isn't a lot. So if they're not playing something like Jeskai, you can almost always just flood the board. There aren't a lot of main deck Angers floating around. Maybe if I played like against a Primeval Titan Valakut deck, I would be aware. Other than that, you kind of just flood.
Okay.
You instead of generating power, I do put the punishing creatures on board first, like the two Thalias. But because then, like, Thalia's Lieutenant can always just pump everything because everything's a human.
Sure. Then along with Reflector Mage, we have Sin Collector, kind of this, most of these cards are from newer sets. It's actually kind of funny to see the old ones, you know, Sin Collector, Champion of the Parish, Noble Hierarch. These are like the older cards along with the first Thalia. But Sin Collector here really doing a lot of heavy lifting because I think, you know, Tom Ross wrote about this deck this week. Having these abilities on these creatures so you don't have to dilute your deck with spells is super relevant.
Yeah, I actually had a sweet Sin Collector play where my opponent, my blue-red white opponent, is attacking me with a Geistesang draft, and I'm pretty low life, have really nothing on board, but I just peeled a company that turn. So I path to exile his Angel token, and then company into Big Thalia Sin Collector, see his hand of Land Supreme Verdict, take the Supreme Verdict out of his hand mid-combat, and then eat his Geistesang draft with my Thalia. So yeah, Sin Collector.
Seems pretty good there.
Pretty good there. In those matchups, Sin Collector, very good. Is a card I board out when I don't expect to be dealing with that kind of stuff.
And of course we have Collected Company here, is just the all-star.
Possibly the best card in Modern.
Yeah, we see it in all sorts of decks, any tribal strategy, all these value decks all want copies of this card. Then let's talk about the mana base because, you know, we're running a bunch of colored creatures here, so we need ways to cast it. Mana Confluence, Cavern here is the all-star, I think.
Cavern is great. I've never cast a card in my life. It cost me a lot of money, but it more than pulling its weight in this tournament with this deck. Yeah, go green on turn 1, white on turn 2, black on turn 3, red on the sideboard.
So what has kind of given you problems this tournament, and what have you felt really good against?
I just played the Grixis Shadow twice, and it felt pretty good. I kind of needed to get there, but my deck felt so dense with awesome cards to draw at. I got run over by Affinity the first rounder today, kind of retribution for giving it up. Felt like the deck has 0 flyers in it, so just sometimes the stuff came to the air. And I lost to Brennan playing Counters Company, and things like Mirren Crusader are awesome versus them, but other than that, they can kind of just clog up the ground because I can never take the air. I don't have like a falter effect, just like infinite Kitchen Finks and Recursion can just grind me down, and they have a combo finish and I don't.
Sure, yeah, being able to gain a bunch of life is relevant against this type of deck. Now we mentioned Mirren Crusader here in the sideboard. You have 2 copies of that. We have some more humans jumping around here. We'll go over all of them. Along with Mirren Crusader, we have Izzet Staticaster, and then Combo, another new card here. Talk about where each one of these kind of shines.
Okay, so Izzet Staticaster is great in things like the Mirror, which I actually played, things like Elves. I brought in its Dredge. I ended up getting both in my hand without being able to cast them, but I'm pretty sure it's like pretty good holding down their blood gas from attacking and getting their flyers out of the air. It's just great in matchups like that. Things like Elvis is the best possible draw. Pretty good against Affinity too.
Sure.
It's kind of hard because you need your 5-color land or to Coco into it, but its power level is great. It's also like the best card possible against me.
Sure.
Camball, limited medium star. Very good against all non-creature decks. Like bringing in Inscription Shadow seems insane against Storm, but against Control. Just a 2-life is like a pretty significant thing. So just, it's a must answer on the spot. It seems berserk against Burn, though I haven't played a Burn this tournament, but Burn sort of has to deal with it on the spot at a big disadvantage, or else it's just over for them. So yeah, we covered those are the humans.
Yep, and then Mirren Crusader, just great when you need to punch in big chunks of damage.
Counters Company has like Walking Ballista, and that's it. That could block it or deal with it, or they have Path, but on the ground it just destroys, and it can get pumped with a couple of different effects in the deck. And then again, Grixis Shadow, they've been cutting bolts, so like they have 1 or 0 or maybe 2 bolts, and then some angers, but other than that, nothing touches it.
And we have some other non-human creatures, but just kind of filling the roles here. We have Core Firewalker and Reclamation Sage. These are just strong against Burn and just utility against artifacts and shamans.
Yeah, Reclamation Sage, there's an Ironworks deck, there's a Affinity, obviously, bordering against Tron, stuff like that. Core Firewalker is actually the card I regret the most having in the deck. It's going to be pretty tough on the mana base, though my mana base does skew toward white, but it doesn't come easily off Cavern, because you almost always want your Cavern on human. There isn't really enough burn, and I think that other stuff like Camball is good enough that I'd rather have an extra card to bring in against control. Because against decks where everything that targeted a creature, Reflector Mage and Path, were useless, I didn't really have enough besides Camball. I brought in Crusader against decks that weren't black and green just to like deal more damage.
So what do you think in the future you're going to kind of...
Other people had Meddling Mage. That seems pretty good, but I'm open to...
There's a lot of humans in the modern format.
Right, yeah, especially, and anything that's a human has a significant advantage of being in the deck over the Firewalker.
All right, then our non-creature threats or sideboard cards, we have Stony Silence, a card you're familiar with on the opposite side of the board, and then triple Rest in Peace here. I think we know Dredge, Shadow, those kinds of decks really rely on the graveyard.
Yeah, the Rest in Peace, I didn't even know how good it would be against Shadow, but it was very good. It just makes their deck like only Death Shadow, because it turns off how good Snapcaster is, turns off Gurm, turns off Tassiger, turns off Kolaghan's Command, and they're like just a Death Shadow, only Death Shadows, and you have 4 paths in your deck and a lot of Reflector Mage, and they don't always draw them all.
Well, we're 12 rounds into the event. You're 9-3, correct?
9-3. I think I'm still alive. Win 3 in hope. Definitely gonna make some money. So.
All right. Any changes you want to think about or go forward in the main deck, or are you pretty happy with how it's built?
So in terms of the mana base, I've actually had, I think, 4 different mulligans off drawing township-only hands. So like, when I have only 21 lands in the deck and 2 of them are townships, township is obviously so good, but it's kind of punishing. So I'm considering going down to 1, maybe adding the white-green land that draws a card.
Horizon Canopy.
Maybe adding a Horizon Canopy over it, and I want these Firewalkers gone, especially on a turn like this, which there isn't a ton of burn on day 2 or in general.
All right, awesome. Well, the deck looks fun. It's definitely been popping up online. You're the only person in day 2 with the deck, so it's great to see it. Wish you the best luck. Thanks for joining me here in the sideboard. Stay tuned to StarCityGames.com all weekend long for the action here in Charlotte.